Photoshop gives us the ability to use layers to compose images or composite images. You can non-destructively correct the color or anything about your image, and we'll go into that in a little while. And you can add text. So as you can see, there's a text layer, and there's different image layers here, and then you have your original background layer, or sometimes it's your original image. So in this layers panel, you can add layers with this little plus sign. You can delete layers with the trash can. You can move layers by highlighting one just like this and just dragging it up or down. You can change the opacity up here, which basically changes, how much of the image you're seeing. We won't do that quite yet. And then you can toggle the visibility using this little eye here, which basically will make each of these layers disappear or reappear as I want. And I do that a lot for when I'm comparing an edit that I just made, or do I want to keep this particular part in the image or not. So, and that basically, we have the types of layers, which I probably already said. You have your text, your image layers, and then, and the adjustment layer is down here by this little circle, and this allows us to do the non-destructive editing. We will get into adjustment layers here in a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to Photoshop and we will take a look at all of this. Here's my original layer, and it's called the background, and there's this little lock here, which means that there are some things that you can do with the layer and some things that you can't. I always create a new layer, or a copy of this, so that I always have the original, just in case I get all the way into my edit and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not going well, I'm just going to start all over. Which happens quite often, actually, because I get going on one path in one direction and then I decide, oh, I don't want to do that anymore, and then I start another. So I'm going to go up here to layer, and I'm going to duplicate the layer. And I get this little pop-up box, and you can leave it as background copy if you want, so that it's the original image, but I mean, it looks like this is the same original image. So I'm just going to label it as coffee beans, because that's what it is. Coffee beans. Okay, so now we have these two layers. And this layer is on top, and you can't really see, what I'm going to explain this next makes more sense if we take Jay and his coffee cup and plug it into the coffee beans. So I'm going to do Command A so that I can select everything on this layer, and making sure I have my move tool selected or activated. I'm going to click and hold, and then I'm going to drag up to here, wait for that image to come. I haven't let go of my mouse yet. Bring it down here and let go. And obviously, Jana's coffee cup is a much bigger image than my coffee beans. So I need to shrink this down a little bit. I am going to use the transform tool. Go up here to edit, and free transform, which is the shortcut, which I love shortcuts, is Command T on the Mac. And there's a transform tool so that I could actually, if I wanted to do something specific, that's where I would find that. We'll talk about that later in later videos. So for right now, I want to do a free transform. And I don't see my blue box, so I am going to do Command and minus key on the keyboard to zoom out, and now you can see there's the blue box. I'm going to do it again and again. There we go. So now this is the blue box. This is how big that image is, and I'm going to click and hold on one of these white arrows, and I'm just going to shrink that down. and then click and drag it up. Shrink it down again, click and drag it up. There we go. And you can click on any one of those and it will shrink and move proportionally. That is a change in Photoshop that has been just recently. Used to be you had to hold Shift down when you did that to expand or shrink proportionally. Now if you hold the Shift key down and then click and drag on one of those boxes, it stretches. It doesn't do anything uniformly or proportionally, it just stretches. So to undo that, I'm going to do Control Z or Command Z. Okay, so that doesn't look right. So you know what? I'm just going to delete this layer. I'm going to click and drag it down to the trash. Or if you wanted, as this lighter gray means that it's selected, you can just click on the trash can. Do I want to delete the layer? Yes. Okay, so let's start that over. Still selected over here. Those marching ants, if you will, means that it's selected. So I'm going to click and hold and drag. Activate the other file. Come down here and let go. Okay, so now we're going to do the Command T to do the transform. Shrink him down, move him up, shrink him down, move him up. Okay, that looks better. And once I'm done, I can either hit Enter on the keyboard or click this little checkbox, and that's there. So now I want to zoom back in. I'm going to do Command plus, and we're going to zoom back in. Alright, so as you can see, Jay and his coffee cup are covering up some of these coffee beans. So that's where the layers panel comes in. Layer 1 is Jay and his coffee cup. And if I want to change that name to a layer from over here, because I didn't duplicate it so I don't have that pop-up box, just double click on the words there, and then we'll put Jay and his and coffee cup. Gotta learn how to type. And just hit Enter once you're done. Okay. So now, the layers, the very top layer, which is Jay and his coffee cup right now, means that is the layer or the image that will be the most up front. So if I were to click and drag, and that blue line means that's if I let go, that's where it's going to drop the layer. Now the coffee beans is the most front layer. And now I can't see Jay and his coffee cup. But I want to see Jay and his coffee cup, so I'm going to click and drag and move him back up. And once I see that blue line, I'm going to let go and drop it. There we go. So that is the beginning or the start of the layers panel. We'll talk about the other things, such as the opacity and this normal. This is a blending mode, and channels and paths and all of that stuff. We'll talk about that as we go on.